Talk and Rock Radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
You know you make me wanna shout, throw my hand up and kick my heels back and throw my head back and come on now, don't forget to say you will. Don't forget to say yeah, 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 yeah. Say you will. Say it right now, baby. Say you will. Come on, come on. Say you will. Say that you. Say you will. Come on now. Say that you love me. Say that you need me. Say that you want me. You want me. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. Say, I still remember when you used to be 9 years old. Yeah, yeah, I was a fool for you from the bottom of my soul. Yeah, yeah, now that you're grown up, open up to know. Yeah, yeah, you want to leave me. Yeah, you want to let me go. Yeah, yeah, I want you to know. I said I want you to know right now. You've been good to me, baby. Better than I've been to myself. And if you ever leave me, I don't want...
Welcome, everyone, to Talk and Rock Radio. My special guest today is a band leader, rock star, civil rights crusader, father, Jersey boy, author, and rock and roll historian. Welcome from Clearwater, Florida, my new buddy, Joey Dee. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine, Rick. I feel like we've been friends for hours.
Well, I tell you what, man, I was prepared for this today. I knew you were going to outdress me, and I wished I could go in and put on one of my flashy tuxedos. The only problem is it's been about 46 years since I've worn it when I was in the band business, so I know it would not fit me again. So you're going to be the star today.
Well, thank you. I'm old school, Rick, and you remember the old days, all the groups, the Drifters, the Coasters, we all would have a contest, not just vocally, we have a dress contest as well. And if you didn't wear a suit and tie and look better than the audience, you didn't belong on stage, in our opinion.
Yeah.
And I was very, very, very lucky to work with all of these great people who were idols of mine.
You know, what you're saying rings so true to me, Joey, because back in those days, you know, we would dress up to do our shows. You know, we had yellow tuxes, we had powder blue tuxes, we had jumpsuits, we had all kinds of stuff that we'd wear, but the bands always looked the same. They always looked good. They, you know, anymore when you see concerts, you don't really see the bands dressing up like they used to. And you know, it's not the same unless you're going to a headliner show in Las Vegas or something, then you're going to see the real deal. But it's not like it used to be in the old days.
Well, up through the about 1965, we're all dressing. I still do it even to this day in all the gigs I do. But I think Woodstock killed it. They look like street people, man. They didn't care about what they looked like. Some of them sounded okay. Some sounded great. I wasn't enamored with their music. I was more an R&B guy. So I like the Motown. I like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. I like the Bee Gees. And that's my kind of music.
Well, of course, one of those guys that you're naming off there was also in your band, and he made a pretty good show at Woodstock, and that was Jimi Hendrix.
Jimmy and I had so much fun together, and people got to get the book. It's called Peppermint Twist Chronicles. You can go to Amazon and get it. You can go to JoeyDee.com and get it on my website. And it's a microcosm of the early 1960s. We had the Vietnam War going on. We had the advent of the birth control pill. So prior to that, we were always having to be the person who would lead to try to make the date with the girls. When after the pill came out, now the girls got very bold and they would ask guys for dates. So it was pretty cool. But with the Vietnam War, that was a terrible situation. And but I had the proudest thing I ever did, Rick, in my career, as far as I'm concerned, is I had the first rock and roll doo-wop group that was integrated, and we had a #1 hit record, the Peppermint Twist. And I had some offers to work down south, and I turned them down because they wanted me to change the colors. And I said, no, we're a band and we're going to stay a band. And they called me back.
And for those of you all out there that don't know what year that was 1961 when all that took place.
We had the situation, back in the late 50s. I grew up in Passaic, New Jersey, a block away from where two of the Shirelles lived. We didn't have any problems with racism. And I always said sports and entertainment is a level playing field, because if you got the talent in sports, the cream always comes to the top. If you got the talent in music or the arts, the cream always comes to the top. I had the good fortune of growing up 8 miles from New York City. So I had the best musicians, the best singers, I put together a group called the Young Rascals. They were in all different groups. Gene Cornish, well, 3 of the 4 of them, Felix Cavalieri and Eddie Brigatti. But I knew Dino. He was with a group called Ronnie Speaks and the Elrods. And then I hired the Ronettes. I mean, I was so lucky and fortunate to be in New York City at that particular time. 1965, I had the world's greatest guitar player, in my opinion, Jimi Hendrix, for a year. When he left my group, he went with Chaz from the Animals, who became his manager, and they went to England. And there's stories in the book about it. You got to get the book. It's really interesting. And I talk about the Vietnam War, and I talk about the mob. Vito Genovese owned the Peppermint Lounge, and he also owned Roulette Records, which was my record company, and Tommy James' record company, and Lou Christie's record company, and none of us got paid. So that's how it was back then. The owner of the record company, Morris Levy, said to me, kid, he sends me a check. Now I got the #1 record in the country and the #2 album in the country. And the check was, I owed him $13,000. So you do the math. I could never figure that one out. And he says, here's how it works, kid. I get the record royalties, you get the performances. And that's how it is. And when I found out who he was connected with, Vito Genovese.
Hey, what are you gonna do? You know,
that? It's all in the book, and it's very interesting. And you know what? He was right. He kept all that money. He did give me a little bit of money because my last name ended in a vowel. He gave me $13,000 for all the records I ever sold for Roulette, and then there were millions. So,
and then you said, forget about it, right?
Well, that's all I could say. I didn't actually say anything. I just kept my mouth shut.
Let's do this. I want to talk a little bit, Joey, about before the Starlighters happened. On the path of becoming a Starlighter band, you guys were on the Ted Mack's Amateur Hour, and I'm going to play that video. It's really, really fun to watch.
Passaic, New Jersey now. A 6-piece rock and roll combination. They call them the Starlighters. You boys in school, or do you work, or what?
We're 2 truck drivers, a truck driver's helper, a color matcher for an ink factory, and an aluminum awning installer.
Oh, golly, you really get around, don't you? Where have you played your rock and roll music?
Local charities and Catholic youth organizations in and around the state.
All right, let's hear something. a new one every day. How come? How'd you get the idea of riding on that bass pedal?
I was the only one who could fit in his saddle.
Well, you fit all right, and you stayed on.
Let's talk about that group.
1957 or 8. We're going back 100 years now, Rick.
I know, that's all right.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about that moment, that video. I mean, it's pretty cool. I like how it ends up with you on that double bass.
Well, my sister Mary and my brother-in-law Sam, who was my godfather, he sent a letter in to the Ted Mack show to try to get my group on, and lo and behold, they got us a date on the Ted Mack show. So we went on, and I wrote a song just for that show, and I'm playing saxophone at the time, and it was a great experience. Ted Mack was a heck of a nice guy, and we came in second to a 6-year-old kid who sang Danny Boy. So I didn't have a chance. And it was a call-in show, and all the people that would call in would make their votes, and we got the second amount of votes. And this little kid, 6 years old, he won the contest. But it was cool, and meeting Ted Mack was a great thing, and it was the start of our career, really.
Now, nobody from that group, though, was a member of the Starlighters, were they?
Not the group that made the records.
Right.
No, except for the drummer was with us for a while until his father said, you got to get a real job. And he became an attorney and a captain in the Marine Corps. And he just recently passed away. He was my best friend, Anthony Dutch Shudo. And he's the drummer on the Ted Mack show. And then he left to seek his own career. But none of that group was on any of the records, save Brigati.
You know,
save Dutchy Shudo.
Back when you did become Joey Dee and the Starlighters, gosh, you had such great vocalists. I mean, you had Rogers Freeman in there. And of course, you already mentioned, Eddie Brigati, but you had his brother David in there for a while. You even had Frankie Valli's brother, Bobby Valli. How did you find all of these great voices? Did they come to you? Did you go to them? How did that work out?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, because it showed I had a little business acumen. I had the band. I was a sax player and a background singer, and all I would play would be instrumentals, honky tonk and songs of the ilk at the time. And it's ironic, the guitar player in honky tonk is Billy Butler. That's the same guy who took the solo in Peppermint Twist. So it's what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
But it was just fantastic how that came to be. But the group I put together, here was where my business acumen came in. I had the band, but I knew I needed some great singers. Now, all the doo-wop groups could not get a gig in a bar because they didn't have a band. I had the band. So I went out and I got Rogers Freeman from his group, and Rogers was a man of color, and that was the first time it was ever done. And then next, I got David Brigati, who's with a group called the High Fives, and David Brigati is also the tenor on all the Rascal records, and he's just a fabulous voice. So I had the two best singers in the state of New Jersey, and we had a lot of them, like Frank Sinatra, and so on and so forth. Connie Francis. New Jersey's known for its singers. Bruce Springsteen, on and on and on ad infinitum. The Shirelles, the Happenings. So many groups came out of New Jersey. So I had the convenience of being near New York City, where I got Hendrix. And Joe Pesci was my guitar player for a while in 1961, just before we made it. Then he left. He wanted to get into acting. He knew what he was doing, and he won an Academy Award. And the groups that were in with me, the Rascals, the Ronettes, Jimi Hendrix, they all became members of Rock and Roll's Hall of Fame. And I'm so proud of that. And a lot of people say, well, you're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I said, so what? I gave them an opportunity and they had the talent. And it showed that I had a God-given ear and a talent to pick talent. And I had the best people you could possibly work with. I mean, when I was singing at the Peppermint Lounge, Bob Dylan was down at the Cafe Wa down in the Village. I mean, it was just amazing what was going on in New York City. Dino Danelli was in the Metropole playing with Ronnie Speaks and the Elrods, along with Gene Krupa and people. You're a drummer, so you know about that stuff. Gene Krupa was my drummer's favorite drummer. And then there's a guy, Lester DeMurl. I don't know if you know that name, but he played with Harry James, and he was around at the time. I mean, I got to meet so many fantastic people. In the Peppermint Lounge when I was there, every night Judy Garland was there. Every night, not every other night, every night. Shirley MacLaine, John Wayne came in, Nat King Cole came in, Marilyn Monroe was there. The Beatles came in, the Rolling Stones came in. I worked with the Beatles in 1963 in Stockholm, Sweden. They were my opening act. This is before they were famous. And George said to me, I threw a party for them after that show, and I knew there was magic there. They had it, man, because the crowd went. I had to bring my A show to that show because we followed them, and the crowd went wild when they were on. So we did our best.
Yeah, I've got to interject something here real quick, Joey. You know, you were talking about the Peppermint Lounge. When you guys first started at the Peppermint Lounge, it was only supposed to be for 3 days, and you ended up being there for 13 months. Talk about that, man.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about that. But let me talk about George Harrison when he said to me, we're coming to the States in January. This was November 1963, just 2 months before they came here. And he says, we're going to look you up at the Peppermint Lounge. And you know what? I said, I'm a Jersey guy, so I'm kind of cynical. And I said, yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you in the Peppermint Lounge. And they all showed up, all four of them. It was amazing. I never expected them to show up.
That's great. So, so talk about how that 3-night gig ended up being 13 months.
Well, we went to the Peppermint Lounge with Rogers and David, and we were just giving the house band, Jimmy and the Scamps. They were the house band that we supplanted for supposedly 3 days. But when they heard Rogers sing For Your Love and Dave Brigatti singing Johnny Mathis and the Drifter songs, they fired that group and we became the house band. And that's how that came to be, because I knew I had the best singers, and we had contests in the state of New Jersey on the best bands, the best singers. So my band virtually won every contest. We were number one because I had the good brain to get these wonderful singers, and nobody could beat us. Nobody could beat us. We were number one. And Joe Pesci, here's how I met him. He kept coming in second with a guy called Bill Callanan, who later became my organ B3 player. And he quit that band and joined that's how Pesci joined my band. He didn't want to be second. He wanted to be in number one. So he joined my group. And he plays a hell of a guitar. A lot of people don't know that.
That's really cool. Now, regarding the band, when you had Brigatti in there and when you had Valley in there with you, and the three of you guys, there's some video that I'm going to play parts of in this broadcast that of you guys, and I'm hearing songs that brought back the Four Seasons. Now, were you guys doing My Eyes Adored You before Frankie even did it?
No. Frankie recorded that song back in 1964, I think.
Okay.
And I didn't get the Brigati and Valley until the year 2000.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so this is much later. But the show was a great concept. I figured I had my, What Kind of Love, Mashed Potatoes, and Shout, and Peppermint Twist, of course. And now I had Bobby Valley doing all Frankie's songs. So it was wonderful. And then I had Dave Brigati doing the Rascals songs.
Yeah, the name of the dance is the Peppermint Twist. My eyes adored you, though I never laid a hand on you. My eyes adored you. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last, love has arrived, and I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. Oh, pretty baby, don't bring me baby. Oh, pretty baby, now that I found you, stay and let me love you, baby. Let me love you, baby. Let me love you.
It was a win-win-win. And we
Yeah.
had a great show. And if you look at some of the old footage, you'll see it came off pretty well, and it was very successful. And we lasted 10 years.
That's great, man. That's great. Well, and we're going to be talking real soon with Felix. He was supposed to do the show with me this week, and he had to reschedule.
Felix is a great guy and a great talent. And he was with me because my keyboard player that I mentioned earlier, Bill Callanan, had just got married, and his wife was with him, and she got homesick. So he left. But before I left, I saw Felix Cavalieri playing with a group called Felix and the Escorts in the Choo Choo Club in Garfield, New Jersey. And I said, man, this kid is a hell of a talent. So when I lost Bill, he said, I'm leaving. I got to leave, Joey. And I understood. I said to my manager, get a hold of Felix Cavalieri and fly him out, because I had 8 more weeks to go on a tour in Europe. So he flew Felix out, and he was on the gig where we worked with the Beatles. So he got to meet the Beatles there. But we had a lot in common, and Felix is always very condescending and appreciative that I gave him an opportunity, and so did Gene. And it's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Eddie Brigati, the first song he ever sang on was, he was like 15 or 16, was What Kind of Love Is This? Song written for me by Johnny Nash. I mean, I was surrounded with these famous people. I mean, if somebody told me that he had Jimi Hendrix in the band, Joe Pesci in the band, put together the Rascals, did the Ronettes, Charles Neville from the Neville Brothers, all in the same group, Roger Freeman, David Brigati, I'd say, get the hell out of here. I wouldn't believe a word of it. I wouldn't believe a word of it. The only thing is, it really happened, because it happened to me. And I was so fortunate. I had all this low-hanging talent, hanging fruit talent in New York City. I needed a guitar player. So who do I get? Jimi Hendrix. I mean, give me a break, will you?
Well, I'm just real curious about something, man. I'm from the West Texas, out here in the desert, man. You're up there where there's water and Italians in great wine. I mean, what's the deal with New Jersey and all the great people like, Bobby Rydell and Frankie Avalon and Anka and all these guys? How come New Jersey's got so much talent up there? How'd that happen?
Well, Anka's a Canadian,
Yeah,
and Bobby Rydell and Avalon, they're from Philly.
they're from Philly. But that's close enough,
But my guys, we had Frank Sinatra, Connie Francis, The Happenings, Joey Dee and the Starlighters, the Shirelles. I mean, we had superstars, Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, they all came from this. It was the third smallest state when I was growing up until Hawaii became a state. So it's the fourth smallest state. How the hell did we get all of this talent? I mean, from Sinatra to Frankie Valli to Springsteen. I mean, give me a break.
I know.
And we're all Jersey boys. And you know what? We all respect each other. And Joe Pesci, every year we have dinner together. He never forgot his roots. He's a great guy and a wonderful actor. He could be a comedian like he was in My Cousin Vinny, or he can be a murderer, cutthroat like in Casino, and he's in Goodfellas. He's just a hell of a talent, and he knew what he was doing, man. He's just a great talent, and he plays great guitar, like I told you, and he sings well too.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I used to be a big fan of Frankie Valli and the Four Lovers before they were the Four Seasons. And I would go to all the bars and watch them sing with Tommy DeVito and Nicky Michoch and Bob Gordy. I'm playing all the local places in Jersey. We were the number one band. So I'm playing a place called Passaic Armory, my hometown. Who comes in? Every week they brought in a star. A group comes in who sang Short Shorts, Royal Teens.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that? Bob Gaudio. He wrote Short Shorts. So I knew him before he became the Four Seasons.
Wow.
And it was just fantastic. I've been so blessed, Rick. I can't tell you. All the wonderful people. And I'm still friends with all of these people after all these years. And then I got to meet my heroes, the Flamingos, the Drifters. I'm an R&B guy. And here's how I got to do the Peppermint Twist. I went to this bar to see Pearl Reeves, and it was the clientele was all colored. It was called Ben's Cotton Club in Newark, New Jersey. And Dave Brigatti and I were the only two white boys in the joint. That's what I'll call us. That's what we were. And we were listening to the band, and then the jukebox comes on, and I hear this song, "Come on, baby, let's do the twist." I said, man, that's a great song. And it was Hank Ballard and the Midnighters. And I said, we got to do this in the show. So I put it in the show, brought it to the Peppermint Lounge. Merle Oberon came in and danced to it, the great actress. And that's how the whole thing started. I wrote the Peppermint Twist with Henry Glover from Roulette Records.
Well, they got a new dance and it goes like this. Yeah, the name of the dance is the Peppermint Twist. Well, you like it like this, the Peppermint Twist. Yeah, round and round, up and down, round and round, up and down, round and round and up and down, and 1, 2, 3, kick, 1, 2, 3, jump.
And rest is history, man. It all started like that. And without that, hearing that song, Hank Ballard, he became a very dear friend of mine. He just, he never got the credit he deserved.
We were talking earlier about our mutual good buddy, Pete Barbuti. There was so many others too, like Sammy, for example. Did you ever work with Sammy Davis?
I want to tell you stories. I'm living in the Bronx at the time, and 1980, in the 80s, he calls me up and said, can you, I had a nightclub in 1965, and he used to come in there with Lola Falana. So we became very good friends. And he said, they're having a premiere at the Wilt the Stilts club in Harlem. Can you come over? Because I lived in the Bronx. And I said, sure. He said, they're having a grand opening or a premiere of I Spy, Bill Cosby and Robert Culp. So I go to Wilt the Stilts joint, and I'm sitting in the audience, and he said, now I'd like to have my friend Joey Dee come up and sing his hit record. I'm saying, what the hell? And he's got the band there. And I said, do they know? I don't have any music with me. And he said, I already hipped him to you were going to do it. And I'm singing the Peppermint Twist. And who's singing Bop Shoo Bop, Baba Shoo Bop? Sammy Davis Jr. And I have a picture of that, and it's in my book, and the story's in it. I mean, so many wonderful things happened to me. The Beatles open for Joey Dee. Yeah, sure. Get the hell out of here. I don't believe a word of it.
Sammy
Davis sang background for Joey Dee. Yeah. And you danced with Judy Garland. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Sammy Davis was so cool. We, my wife and I, when we were traveling on the road with one of my groups, we saw Sammy, and I think it was in Phoenix at the theater in the Round there. And I met his drummer in between I think it was right before the show started. His name was Shorty. And the reason why his name was Shorty is because one of his legs was shorter than the other. But it didn't affect his drum playing. I tell you what, the guy he was killer, man. He was really good.
Yeah.
Of course, Sammy was a good drummer too. He played drums also.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Dino Danelli just passed away from the Rascals, a good friend of mine, and he was a hell of a drummer. A lot of people don't know how good he really was. He was in Downbeat a few times.
He was so animated,
Yeah, exactly. And he got a lot of that from my drummer, Willie Davis, who was an idol of his. So what goes around comes around, and it was wonderful how my group impressed and affected a lot of very, very talented people.
Yeah, it's all so incredibly entertaining to me. You also at one time, I know, and this involves your parents and everything, but you wanted to be a teacher, and you were really into the English, you were really into history. But what's interesting about your book, Joey, is that you got to cover it all, man. You wrote it in English, and it's all about history of music, man. And it's a great read. I know you talked about it earlier, but I got to encourage everybody to get this. If you want to read about how it was for these guys back in the day, working with all these great names and just the historical reference that you make throughout the whole book, how it was being, interracial, the tensions, the stories, the fights, everything that took place for this guy.
And the mob and the FBI. And we were a microcosm, not just the music of what was going on in early 1960s, from 1960 to about 1960, till the advent of the British invasion, 1964, because we had it covered. We had it lock, stock, and barrel. It was all ours. New York City was the mecca of music, without a doubt.
Without relinquishing too much information about the book, Joey, talk briefly about one of your references about one of your Italian brothers up 24 or up 20 stories in that building about the contract.
Well, it's the same story that Tommy James tells in his book, which was a bestseller. And he was with Roulette Records, and he knew the same story. And I knew the guy who hung the guy out the window. They said, you got to sign this contract. Now we're on the 20th floor of the building, and Tommy James is there, and I'm there with Morris Levy, and the guy's dangling them out the window and said, are you going to sign it? What would you say? So they pulled him back in, and of course he signed it. And that was the story. And oh my God, it was frightening. It was very, very scary.
Yeah, you're not going to say anything like, well, can I call my attorney first and see what he says?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's lucky the guy had a good hold on his ankles, I'll tell you that.
No kidding, man. No kidding. Well, I will tell you this. We did work some of those rooms, and they were in Cleveland. One was Warren, Ohio. The other one was Willoughby, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. And they were some of the nicest employees we ever had. They were great.
Exactly. And let me tell you this, too. I'm going to take you back to 1962 and 3 when I first started going to Las Vegas with Dick Clark and American Bandstand. The mob ran every one of those casinos, every one of them. And it was way better than it is now. How do you like that? It's all corporate owned now since Howard Hughes came in and he brought in Elvis and all the great acts. But before that, when the mob ran it, we had the Rat Pack, we had Sinatra, we had Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, and on ad infinitum. You know, it was just a wonderful place to be. And if you won, they actually took you to your hotel to make sure nobody mugged you or robbed you. And it was cool. If you cheated, they broke your ankles or they broke your kneecaps. That's the way it was. But when the mob ran it, they took good care of you. They gave you all the comps in the world. Now it's all a big business. And it's not as much fun as it was back in the early 1960s when I was there.
Well, I got to tell you, back in the mid 70s when we played the Spokane World's Fair over there, the guy that owned the club where we were playing, he had a penthouse suite for the entertainment to stay in. It had like 3 or 4 bedrooms, whatever, full bar, food in the refrigerator. I mean, the whole bit. And Jackie Vernon, who we were playing with at the time, we were backing him up. He was the comedian.
Very funny guy, man.
Oh, he was great. Well, anyway, he was a diabetic, and so we were gonna have to relinquish our suite for him because he had to be on a special diet. So what happens is the club owner puts us in his personal home that he had just bought. The guy, first of all, owned something like 128 clubs in the United States, so that tells you something.
Yes.
And he had a bodyguard there with him. He had Panteras. He had about 4 or 5 very fancy cars sitting out in front of his house. But he let my wife and I and the guys in the band stay right there in his house because we had to give up the suite that we would have normally gotten for Jackie to be able to cook his special meals. And so we stayed right there in this guy's house. It's like, no big deal. You guys want anything? You know, feel free to go get it.
Cool.
Give me the bill. Yeah, really nice.
I worked the crescendo with Don Rickles. Can you imagine?
Oh, wow.
Oh, did we break his balls?
Oh,
and vice versa.
I bet
we
you
loved
did.
it. We were Jersey guys. Dave Brigatti and I were relentless, and he came right back at us. And he's Don Rickles, man, the best.
He's the king.
Yeah, he was the best. And we worked with him for 3 weeks there, man. And we made so much fun of him and vice versa. It was a great, great time for us.
Oh, I bet that was. Man, I bet you've got some really fun stories with him.
Well, can you imagine being on the road with Jimi Hendrix?
Oh, man.
Well, there's some stories in the book you got to read, man. All hell broke loose. And talk about chick magnets. We had them all, man. We had them all.
Well, you even had Jackie Kennedy coming into your club up there.
That's right.
Yeah.
It just, everybody came. Well, first of all, I got to shake John Wayne's hand, the Duke, man. I got to shake Nat King Cole's hand. These are my idols, man.
Well, let me tell
Judy
you, man.
Garland, I'm dancing with the twist with her on the dance floor in the Peppermint.
Nat King Cole came to the La Fiesta Theater in Juarez, Mexico, back when I was probably in my teens. It's going to be probably in the 60s, 63, something like that. And he entertained over there with Frank Sinatra. But I got to tell you that when we were living out in Newport Beach, California, with my band, when we were out in L.A., the Duke lived just about a quarter mile from our house where we were living. He lived on Balboa Island. He had his own helicopter. And one day my wife and I were at the grocery store, and walking right in front of us there he was, man. It was just amazing, John Wayne walks right in front of us with his daughter.
He was one of the best piano players around.
Was he really? I never knew that.
He was a great piano player.
Wow.
And I got to meet George Benson. I got to meet so many greats. It's just fantastic and amazing. It shouldn't all happen to one person, but it did. And it's all in the book, and not all of it, but a lot of it. And I was pretty honest with it and forthright. And I wanted it to be the real deal. And I spoke to my wife and I told her it's going to be hurtful. And there's some things I'm not very proud of in this book. And she said, make it real. And that's what I did.
That's incredible. Let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite songs that you recorded that you're most proud of, Joey. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, my favorite song happens to be a song written for me by Johnny Nash called I Lost My Baby. I
can't help it if I walk like this, and I can't help it if I talk like this. I can't help it if the sun don't shine. I'm just about to lose my mind. I lost my baby. I lost my baby. She left me all alone. I can't help it if I'm feeling bad, and I can't help it if I'm feeling sad. Please don't blame me if I don't say much. I'm so lost without her gentle touch. I lost my baby. I lost my baby. She left me all alone. No, 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 I can't take too much of this. I've got to have just one more kiss. I want someone hear me now. I got to get that girl back somehow. Please don't blame me if I start to cry.
It never made top 10, but What Kind of Love Is This was my second favorite.
What kind of love is this that makes me want to jump and shout? I want to know, what kind of love is this that turned my heart inside out? It's that itchy feeling that I have inside, something overwhelming that I just can't hide. I want to know, oh yeah, whoa yeah.
And they were both written by Johnny. Peppermint Twist was a little story about the Peppermint Lounge that Henry Glover and I wrote in about 2 hours in the back of the Peppermint Lounge one Sunday afternoon in September of 1961. And that was it. And then I love New Orleans, all the music from New Orleans, from Fats Domino to Lee Dorsey to what's the name? Oh. Well, anyway, all the music from New Orleans. I love the food there. I love the music there. I love the people there. And if I had a choice, if I couldn't be born in New Jersey where I was, my second choice would have been New Orleans because it was just such a great town. The Neville brothers, all good friends. Aaron Neville, I still talk to him once a week, and we're still great friends. What a talent! And I loved all of that music. And I did Lee Dorsey's "Ya Ya," and it became #1 in Europe. They thought it was "Yes, Yes," I guess in German, whatever.
Well, I'm sitting in the la-la waiting for my ya-ya. Sitting in the la-la waiting for my ya-ya. It may sound funny, but I don't believe she's coming. Yeah, baby, hurry, don't make me worry. Yeah, baby, hurry, don't make me worry. Know that I love you, yeah, I really love you. Sitting in the la-la waiting for my ya-ya. Sitting in the la-la waiting for my ya-ya. It may sound funny, but I don't believe she's coming.
But anyway, it was a big hit for me. I got the Bronze Lion from Radio Luxembourg for "Ya Ya" in Europe. So it was a wonderful occurrence. But these are my songs, and I went to see shows before we became successful. I went to see B.B. King versus Ray Charles. How do you like that? Newark, New Jersey.
Love
the two of them on the same bill. And will the king still be king? And I was listening to WNJR, which was the colored station back then, because they wouldn't play those records on ABC and all the other stations. They had the white covers, like Pat Boone doing Tutti Frutti. Now you want to hear Pat Boone do Tutti Frutti or Little Richard? You make the choice. And of course, my choice. And Pat Boone is great. Don't get me wrong, but it's not Little Richard, man.
Did you ever know Johnny Taylor, rhythm and blues guy?
Oh yeah, well, I know of him. I knew B.B. King. I knew Albert King. I knew Muddy Waters. All of those dudes. I loved the blue. Little. My favorite was Jimmy Reed.
Oh, Jimmy Reed. We were playing at a club at a hotel here in El Paso, and this is in around 69, 70, somewhere in there. Johnny Taylor was coming through town. He was staying at the hotel. He walks into the club. He sees my band, and on the break, he invited the keyboard player, Dick Greco, another Italian guy, and myself to go on the road with him. He wanted to hire us right from the band. He says, "You want to go on the road with me?" And we weren't going to leave the band. And I was in college. I was trying to, keep from being drafted. I was going to the university here trying to, because I was going to be gone, for sure.
End up in Nam,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. So I said, no, I can't do this, man. I'm staying here and this is my gig, but Johnny Taylor, oh man, B.B. King, those guys, all those guys, every opportunity I had, I always went to see these guys, man. They were incredible.
Yeah, and they didn't get paid any money either. They were with Chess Records and all of them Chicago crooks that they had up there too. Not many of us got lucky enough to get paid royalties back then. Save Paul Anka, because he was with a good record label. Neil Sedaka. I can name them on one hand, the ones that did make any money off of records. Connie Francis, because they were with legitimate record companies. But the rest of us got zilch, nada.
Yeah. Right after I did the interview with Bobby Rydell a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, God bless him, we lost him, but the Golden Boys were going to get back together. Now I understand Lou Christie took over the position of Bobby Rydell in that trio now. Did you know about that?
Well, it's Lou's was with Roulette, and I just did a gig with him about a month ago, and he and I have been friends forever and ever. Luigi, Alfredo, Giovanni. Did you know that? That's his real name?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I need you to hook me up with him and Paul Schaefer. I want to do shows with both of those guys.
Well, you can get. I'll get you both of those names. I'll have my girl Renee get the numbers to you. Okay, Rick?
That'd be great.
It'd be a great interview, and what a talent.
Oh,
and I think
yeah.
Gene Cornish is back with him now too.
He is.
The guitar player. So
Yeah.
that's really nice. And Gene is a good interview too. If you wanted to get him as well, he's really good.
Cool. That'd be great,
Yes,
man. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, he filled Jimi Hendrix's shoes, and both of them made it to the Hall of Fame.
There you go, man. You had it going, Joey. You really did. You had it going.
Yeah, I did. And it's still going.
That's right. That's right.
Still
I'm
going.
really,
I do about a dozen dates a year by choice.
I'm really proud to know you, my friend, and thank you for coming on board to do this show with me today. I mean, before we sign off, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I just like to tell people, $20 you can get the history of rock and roll in the early 1960s and everything else that was going on back then, and you can get the skinny on Jimi Hendrix and Pesci and the Rascals and Ronnie and the Ronettes and Charles Neville Brothers. I mean, we had some great times with the Beatles. A lot of music, but there's also a lot of mob history in there as well. And I almost got hung out of a window too. So get the book, man. It's $20. It's a paperback, but it's a lot of schooling in there. You'll get an education, I promise you.
Well,
and that's it. Peppermint Twist Chronicles. You have to do it. Chronicles. Add the Chronicles because there's another Peppermint Twist book out there. We don't want you to get the wrong one.
Well, I know you almost got hung out, but I'm glad you hung out with me today, my friend. It was really fun talking with you, Joey. It's you're a piece of vital history. Thank you for your talent. Thank you for being on my show today. You rock, man. You're cool. I like you a lot, and I love the way you dress.
Well, thank you so much, Rick. I'm old school, and I want to tell you, all your fans, keep watching you, because I like the way you give the person you're interviewing some time to talk, because I like to talk and give you some of the history and background. But you have a lot of it on your own. You can interview yourself.
Yeah, but who's going to listen to me, man?
I will.
Oh, I'm just kidding, man.
We're friends now, Rick.
Yeah, we're friends, and I appreciate you, man. And I'll definitely be reaching out to you down the road for some other opportunities, and I hope to see you perform someday, my friend.
I hope so too. And I'll tell you, we have this in common. I went from coast to coast to Canada, one of my favorite countries in the world, and the people are great aficionados of music. And I had so much fun up there. I went from British Columbia to Newfoundland. So I did the whole bit, man. And I did some gigs when the hockey games were on, and nobody paid attention to me.
The first hockey game
but I got paid anyway.
The only hockey game we ever saw was the Regina Pats, and I don't remember the other team, but as the saying goes, I went to a fight and saw a hockey game.
You saw a hockey game break out, yeah.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. We had a great time up in Canada. You're right about the people up there. We loved Canadians. In fact, when we were up there long enough, my wife, even when we got back to the States, she's even talking like a Canadian. She's saying like, biscuit instead of biscuits, and A.
And I have I'm a numismatist. I collect coins, and I have a great Canadian collection of coins that I collected when I was there, and they go back to the 1850s and 60s.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, I have a real nice collection of Canadian coins and U.S. coins as well.
Yeah, very cool.
All right,
Well,
good talking to you, Rick. You take care of yourself. It was a real pleasure, and I'm glad we finally got to get on. I don't know how the hell you worked it out, but you did it, man. Maybe you should become a nerd. Maybe you are a nerd.
I'm already a nerd.
And you could fix things.
Thank you, Joey.
Tell
It's been a real
Felix I said
pleasure.
hi, tell your wife I said hi, and it was great talking to you.
I will, Joey. Thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute gas, and let's stay in touch, my friend.
Please do so.
All right.
Take care now. Bye
Take care,
now.
buddy. Bye-bye.
Sunday afternoon, I really couldn't get away too soon. It's a beautiful morning. I think I'll go outside for a while. Just smile. Oh, 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 oh. How can I be sure in a world that's constantly changing? How can I be sure? I'll be sure with you. You know you make me want to shout, come on.